Welcome to the HVAC Jerks with your hosts, Rich, Kevin, and Joe. You can email these guys at theboys@thehvacjerks.com.
And welcome back to the HVAC Jerks. My name is Rich.
As always.
Still Rich. That's Kevin over there in the back of his head here with the Anonymous Joe. And this week we've got our first guest. This is Rob Mahoney, and he'll tell you all about... What's that?
I just said, hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Okay. So, since you're a guest in our first one, I'm going to give you the opportunity to pick a number which will associate Anonymous Joe with his new name for this week.
Stupidity percolating to the top.
All right, so you've got to, if you could pick a number between 1 and 6, I've got 6 of them listed here, so you're effectively going to choose Anonymous Joe's alias for this week.
I feel good about 3.
3?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, number 3. Number 3 means that Anonymous Joe is going to be known as Paulie the Prince of Prosciutto this week.
Paulie the Prince of Prosciutto.
I don't know what's more frightening. The idea that he had 6 listed.
That's exactly what I was wondering. I kind of want to hear the other 5 now.
Get it.
You never know when you're going to have an Anonymous Joe emergency.
It's funny that you call me Paulie the Prosciutto King. I've been on a prosciutto kick for the last week.
See,
I went and got a pound yesterday.
A pound. It's gone already?
No.
Is that what that smell is?
Take it to bed with you? All right. So, anyway, we've got Robin here today, and he's going to help us ring in our new topic this week. Actually, this is round 2 of upselling.
Wait, you can't use that word. You have to use something else.
Such as?
I don't know. You know, last time we talked about this, he's very sensitive.
Actually, before we get into this, Rob, why don't you tell us your background real quick so people know who you are and what your feeling is and your background that relates to this subject.
Sure. I grew up in the fuel business. My family owned a fuel oil company locally to these guys. I spent a good majority of my professional working career there. Started out managing our oil department and such, then moved on to actually doing outside sales, which is where I started my entire sales career. After that, I worked for a couple different supply houses, and that kind of gets us up to date, kind of
so
abbreviated version.
You're currently in sales now?
Currently in sales, yeah.
So
I don't think I'll ever leave.
You have field experience?
I do.
Did you work as a tech? Or?
Yeah, I did. When I was very young, I kind of just fell into the business. You know, it was kind of one of those things. Summers, it was easy to take a job, and I started working. Mostly doing installations, so a majority of what I do is installs. A little bit of service work here and there, when it was in between when we didn't have much going on in installs, but that was the majority of it.
Cool. So no formal training in the field, just more or less hand experience and following the people in front of you?
Following the people in front of me. Learned from a lot of old school oil guys, and then, as I kind of grew up and took some classes, learned some of the bad habits that I had developed were probably not great from some of those guys because, they started out by just hating everything that was new and fun and fresh. So, I kind
funky fresh, as we like to refer to.
Most importantly, though, have you got strong feelings about upselling? I don't care what side of the fence you're on, as long as you got some kind of strong feelings there.
I do, and specifically about the last episode, which I listened to like 3 times today in preparation. So, I'm ready for you guys. Yeah.
So there's no cage, there's no boxing gloves here or whatever. So it's
well. Did we define a new term? Because that was how we left the last episode. Kevin wanted feedback on coming up with a new terminology, because that word is offensive.
I agree with that. I don't like the term upselling, and I was thinking about something along the lines of value added, if that works better.
Before we go any further, let's just quickly define what we're talking about. As far as upselling, we're talking about contractors selling in the home to homeowners.
No, you can't go that way because we never agreed with that term. So this is where the conversation ended. He agreed that it was one thing. We agreed it was another. And I think we did get some feedback from the audience.
All right, so here's the definition. All right, upselling is a sales technique where a seller introduces the customer to purchase more expensive items, upgrades, or other add-ons in an attempt to make more profitable sale. In practice, large businesses usually combine upselling and cross-selling to maximize profits. So once again, upselling is after the fact that you've already committed the sale. You're already committed to a sale. You got your customer interested. They already want to buy an air conditioning system. And now is where you would try to upsell But to go in and say, well, we're upselling right off the bat, like it's aggressive because it's already trying to get them to spend more than your goal is to sell more, not to solve the problem.
Okay, so
if you're going in with the mentality that upselling is what you're there for.
So,
does that make sense? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, so I'm guessing that you don't want to go in and say, Mrs. Jones, okay, now that you bought the boiler, now we're going to upsell you to stage 2. I'm guessing you don't use that term. You don't use that term, period. So
no, I don't like the term at all. So when I go to, if I go to a customer's home and they're saying, well, we're interested in air conditioning, and well, my first line of questioning is, what is your concerns? What are your problems? What do you want? Ultimately, what are we trying to achieve? And then I will give them, hopefully by the end of that conversation, I'll know where they are financially. I'll know where they are as far as how quick they want to make a decision, or are they looking for top of the line? Are they interested in, which side of the tree they hug? Right. So, you have to find all that stuff out. Then you can start to determine where you're going to go with this. If they say, look, we're on a really tight budget, we just want air conditioning. Okay, like I can do that for you. Here's the price. This will give you what you need and what you can afford and what you're paying for. But if you go in there with the mindset that you're already going into upsell, and that's my only goal, is to come in here and sell them more, you're not doing them a service. You're just going in there to make more money, and you're not doing what you were hired or asked to do, which is to come in and try to solve their scenario.
100%. I started to get better at selling, at least I think, when I started to do some sales classes and tried to understand need-based selling, which I think is really the important thing that, like, I was like screaming at my radio last time I was listening to you guys talk about this. It's more important to go in and understand what the customer needs, because if they don't have allergy problems, or if they don't get sick or anything, like, they might not need a media filter. So what's really the point in doing that? So that's when I started to get okay with doing these kind of quote-unquote upselling tactics. I would go and I would kind of talk to them about what they had in the house, what their needs were, what exactly they were looking for. Just quick example that came up this week for me of perfect upselling. There's this gas station that I go to almost like every other morning or so. This guy puts out a box of candy or something different on the counter almost at all times, and I didn't hardly notice it until this week I went. Fiery Snickers. I went there, I got a soda, and he was talking to every single customer about those fiery Snicker bars. Yeah, flaming hot.
Right, I've never even heard of them.
Everything's flaming hot now, apparently.
Yeah, right.
So they make these flaming hot stickers, and he was talking, and last week I noticed him doing it. This week there was only one Snicker bar left. So
people come in to buy a cup of coffee, and he's upselling them to a Snickers bar.
Right, so the analogy, the way it worked in my mind was, if I'm going there, I'm spending $1.50 on a soda, and he's getting 50 cents profit.
Right.
If that candy bar is $1.50, he just doubled his profit.
Sure.
By just suggesting a fiery hot candy bar. I didn't find it offensive. I guess I'm so used to.
So he brought it up in conversation, not.
He literally mentioned to every single person who walked up to the counter.
To me, that's the whole key, though. If you're offering something to somebody, you don't have to say, "Hey, you need to buy this." You just say,
sure.
"Hey, check this out," and would you have any interest in this? Would you like this? Did you know this existed?
Yeah. And
a lot of times people say, sure, I want to try that.
Yeah.
Right? I got to say, Paulie the Prince of Prosciutto looks like he's going to die here.
What
is going on over there?
I'm just listening to all points of view here, because it's kind of interesting to hear what you guys have to say, because you all find the word
all wrong.
Upselling offensive. Number one, I don't even understand.
I think it's aggressive.
No, well, hang on. I didn't say anything while you were talking for a reason. I want you to give me my platform.
Wait,
now.
Can I try interrupting?
Sure.
I just wanted to do once.
By just spewing out the definition of upselling, you're already coming in with a negative connotation, right? You're suggesting that you're going in there to rip somebody off. You already went to the job saying that there's a problem. We don't know that there's a problem. If somebody goes to you and says, I need somebody to come and evaluate my system, like I think I sent you a call today, right? Your job is you're going in there and you don't know what it's going to be. So you can't go in there with the intent to upsell before you even know what the condition is.
True.
All right. Yep. So I don't know anybody who says physically, mentally, or I'm going in there and upselling. That's just not a terminology.
There's a lot of
used.
people that do that.
Well, okay, so I haven't met any of those. I get the understanding. I think it's your responsibility, like your gas station guy, to bring attention to a product that your customer may or may not know about.
Sure.
So ultimately, the decision is the customer's decision. You say, look, okay, you're going to go to a customer who you just got a cold call or a lead and say, I'd like somebody to come over and check my air conditioning. I want it to be evaluated. And you're going to go there, just like you said, and you're going to evaluate the system. Then you're going to listen, right? And then you're going to say, well, okay, I'm glad you told me what you told me. This is what I found. At that point, you've established contact. You've established the problem. You may have or may not have a solution. And you could do it one or two ways. You could give them an exact swap out, or you can say, I have an A, B, and C plan for you, right? A being the least expensive, will solve your issue, do the same thing. B, if you want to spend a little bit more money, here's your options, and this is what the benefits are. And see if you're, now that you're going to do this is going to be, for the next 20 years, you won't have to spend any more money.
Yeah.
There's ways to approach it. It's not necessarily being aggressive or predatory or any of that. I think by just declaring that upselling is such a negative thing, you're losing business. You're in business because you don't need a hobby. You need money. You have these things called mortgages, car payments, children, airplane tickets. I know you get them all for free, but you still need money.
It's always a requirement for every business.
It's
no
part of the business, just like fixing a boiler is part of the business.
We all sell, and there's always an opportunity to open up a door to some other product that they might need. But your first goal is to try to satisfy their need first, not to go in with the idea that I have to sell them an 18 seater because I'm getting a
the difference from what
from
I'm saying to you is you already predetermined they don't need anything else. In your head, I'm going to see what they need.
They're not calling you for anything else.
But you don't know what they're calling you for. They're calling you to evaluate a system.
I think there are two separate things. I think, if they're calling you, I think a sales call is
John,
very
do we have any air conditioning in here? It's hot in here, babe.
That's
that fourth guy.
Let's use the example of somebody calls you in and says, I'd like an estimate on air conditioning for my house. All right, so we'll just lay the groundwork there.
I think that as its own scenario, if you're not doing need-based selling, if you're not going in there and asking them about everything that's in the home and every way that you can expand it, from everything. If you're putting in a boiler, which I know isn't most of the country, but, if you're not asking about their water conditions or offering to test their water, if you do sell water softeners, you're just making a mistake. You should be doing that because why not? Because you're already in there for a sales situation.
I'm going to give Kevin an example that he brought up. Right, he goes into a house, customer, just like he says, has a budget in mind already. My air conditioner doesn't work. I want you to change the old one. It was working fine, and Kevin looks up and sees the ductwork. It doesn't fit a 3-ton.
Right.
This thing had to be loud, right? Yes. This thing was noisy, and your doors were slamming shut. Okay, was it clammy in here, or were you really comfortable, or were you just used to turn? These are all questions to say, I'm not going to sell you the same thing because you're going to have the same problem.
Sure.
So this is your opportunity to upsell. That's another scenario.
To solve another problem.
That's to solve the problem. That's not upselling.
But it's still an upselling thing because you're changing the dynamic of what's there. Sometimes the customer is wrong even though they're always right.
If you bring up a problem that they have that they don't even realize they have.
But that's the key to selling.
Well, that's selling. That's not upselling.
I changed my viewpoint on this with IAQ, like indoor air quality stuff. Like that
it's a multi-billion-dollar business. Right?
When I first started selling, I wouldn't talk to not one person about it because in my mind, I thought it was a waste. Like that was my personal viewpoint. And then again, as I went to some sales trainings and things like that, I realized who am I to say what my customer wants? Exactly. If they want to spend an extra $10,000 on just indoor air quality.
That's
cool.
Their prerogative. We're just here as a medium to get them to where they need to be.
And specifically on a sales call, I should definitely be offering that to them. Specifically on a sales call.
I think you're detrimental to the customer if
that's all part of that conversation.
Yeah, if you're not going to offer it to somebody, you may be one of 4 guys going in there to give an estimate.
Right.
And somebody else brings that all
up. It sets you apart. Yeah.
I got to throw one example out there that happened to me literally today, and I'll make this as quick as I can. I'm bidding this house where they're turning a barn into a guest house or whatever, and it's going to be 2 floors. They're going to be identical, 2 little tiny bathrooms, and it's kind of a high end property. So they get this little, I don't know what it is, maybe it's 1,200 square feet between the 2 floors, if that, and. So I bid the heating and the air conditioning and the rough plumbing, and that was X amount of dollars. And then the architect sent me the list of fixtures for the bathrooms. Now, the bathrooms consist of a toilet, happens to be a wall-hung toilet, 1 little sink, and 1 little shower. That's it, times 2, 1 for each floor, and a kitchen sink. The fixtures, I'm talking about the faucets, came to my cost $23,000.
Gold plated.
That's fine. That's fine, right? That's
You
their
can't
budget.
judge what people want.
No,
what
everybody
they're
has
spend
a
it on,
different level, different scenario. They might want to go cheap on everything else but the finishes, right? I don't care if you're putting 2x3 walls up, but I want my gold fixture.
Right. So it sounded to me like even on the last one, sales calls themselves, I think we all kind of, I think you guys
we all agree on the sales call because you're going there to make the sales call. Like you're being asked to come in and give them options, to give them suggestions, to give them different lines of product, maybe some things they didn't know about. That's the purpose of that call. So you're satisfying it in that regard, yes. But there's a lot of salesmen that go to those situations that will look at it as nothing more than an opportunity to walk out with a 24-SEER sale. And if I don't get that, I didn't do my job as a salesman. I'm not going to make my extra commission. And they're just highly aggressive because they're just there to make the upsell. They're not there to satisfy the customer. They're not there to solve or resolve any issues.
Are you suggesting because they sell that 24-SEER unit that homeowner is making a decision they shouldn't make?
A lot of times, yeah.
Why?
I think
Not just.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go.
I was just saying there's sales training classes that teach that.
That's
Everybody,
exactly.
that's what you're talking about.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but my point is to you. Ultimately, the decision comes to the homeowner.
Right.
They're the ones writing the
If
check.
you sign today, we'll give you $300 off. If you sign today, we'll give you $800 off. Don't wait for your husband. Let's do it right now. I'll have my guys here this afternoon. Sell, sell, sell. I'm going to give you a 5-year extended warranty package in-house. I'm going to give you all these things, but you got to do it now. Sign this paper or I'm out of here, and you get nothing.
That's like
That's
a
high-pressure sale.
Yeah,
they do it all the time, and that's the upsell because the guy that's there is on a commission base or a spiff or a kickback because the boss is telling him, don't walk out of there with nothing less than this.
I don't think high-pressure sales work anymore for anything
they're
long-term.
still there.
I know they still exist,
still there.
but I think it's a short-term thing. It doesn't develop
It's a
any
very
kind of relation.
short-term thing, and the companies come in and they beat everybody up and they destroy people who are trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
It's like good contractors and bad contractors. If you label yourself as a contractor, you're already negative.
You're okay. So
Pursuit's got his arms crossed.
no, you're
He's very
assuming
pissed. He's very
you're
pissed.
assuming that high-pressure contractor is not a good one.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
We never said that they weren't good.
I'm saying that I don't think high-pressure sales works to build a long-term relationship.
We actually had an episode on this too. It's called closing, right?
Yeah.
So the idea of going to a job is to close a job.
Sure, 100%.
Right? Because that pays your salary. It pays his
Absolutely.
50-foot yacht in the Hudson and whatever. So the
Got a
point
banana
being
boat,
is,
pal.
you say your closing rate on the last one, you said it was 90%, right? Okay.
Yep.
So if you hire somebody, you want them to have equivalent or some sort of reasonable rate, and they're going to want to make money, and you're going to want to pay them to make money. You're not necessarily telling them to go out there and say, we want you to go out there and rip everybody off. We want you to sell 25 SEER units.
There's a lot of companies that push for it. Sell
but
these
you're
thermostats because Honeywell's giving us $25
you're
back.
You're painting such a broad brush. But okay, so let's say for argument's sake, Honeywell's giving you a $25 spiff on a specific thermostat. Are you selling them anyway? Are you not selling them? I mean, you're not selling them because they're giving you a $25 spiff? I don't understand the argument. I really don't.
It's misconstrued and taken out of context.
How? By who?
They want you to sell that instead of the Nest. So if they've got, if they're selling...
Well, they're paying you to introduce another product.
What if Mrs. Johnson, who's 78 years old, doesn't have good eyesight and doesn't want a Nest?
Then she doesn't get that thermostat. I mean, that's a judgment call on the person going in. Perfect example. You went in. Did the guy hold a gun to your head to buy that Snickers bar?
Absolutely not.
Do you know maybe that guy not only is a great salesman, but he was getting paid by Snickers or that candy company to push that line?
Could have been, and I would say that if he isn't, he's probably foolish,
right,
because he's doing a very good job of it, actually. Yeah, he emptied out a box within a week, which, I mean, I don't know for a gas station if that's good or not, but fiery Snickers sounds disgusting.
Listen, the first and foremost things that he did,
Nobody wants that.
He actually introduced a product that maybe nobody knew about. Yeah. And got people to give him feedback. Was it sucked or was it good? One way or another, he got something out of it. You're certainly not going to a job and upselling something you don't believe in, number one.
Right.
Number two, it's something you're going to end up servicing and you own it.
Correct.
And number three is, what's the downside of making a little money?
The number one, though, is not a given.
What?
You said you're not going to sell something you don't believe in.
Why would you?
I wouldn't.
People
and I don't
do
think
it every
any of
day.
us would,
Okay,
but there are Kevin's point is that there are people that
there's
do.
people who do a lot of different things. There's people who fucking. Ooh, sorry. There's the people who do.
John.
Shit.
Oh, no.
There's people who do shit that they shouldn't do every day in their normal life. There's people who cheat on their wives. There's people who run away and do shit. There's people who go into what'd you say, gas stations or toe tapping and rest areas. There's people who should, have families that do that.
Yeah.
We can't equate every action as a reaction, or we cannot equate everything as something nefarious that it's going to lead to. All you're doing is being aggressive.
You said it in the last podcast about you want everybody to treat.
Of course.
Like you go into a house, treat them like your mother.
Right. If I saw there was a product to my mom and said, listen, Ma, we can buy this for $500, but for $150 more, human nature is see more, want more.
Yeah.
And also the biggest thing in human nature is they want the most they can for their dollar.
Sure.
Okay? So everybody wants the deal. Everybody wants to be part of the deal that they negotiated something down. So if your trick is, or if your closing tactic is, if you sign today, I'll give you $500 off. Or if they even bring it up, say, listen, can you do any better for me if I close today, take $1,000 off or $500 off? That might be a pushing on their part, right? So what's the difference?
The difference with what Kevin was saying was, if you want the $500 off, you got to sign right now.
But that is an action required response. We talked about this in the last one. No, but we talked about this in the last one. When he said to me, close me, and he says, I want a better price. I'll sign what you did. Then I said to him, I says, okay, let me make a phone call. However, if I get on the phone and call my boss, is this going to make you pull the trigger today? It's the same thing.
No, it's not.
How isn't it?
Because you're saying if it was you walking in, let's take you out of the equation. Take away your position on this situation, and let's take somebody that you don't know who's driving around in an unmarked van that's going to clean your chimney and tell you that you need a chimney liner, and if you don't sign today...
Yeah, but we can't solve that problem. That's not a problem that's solvable.
This is another thing that I was kind of curious about from the last time you guys had this discussion, which is more closing, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think the best practices on these things are, like what you think that the actual contractor should be doing.
As far as closing?
Well, as far as that, and as far as upselling, we know there's people out there who will take people for money at every single turn. You'll never change that. Sure, 100%. 100%.
You can only be responsible for what you do.
But what do you think in any one of these scenarios? Like, what do you think the best practice is? Like, what do you think it's good to offer that kind of a thing at a closing? Do you think it makes you look bad?
I think what happens is every scenario is different. You have to be able to understand as a sales individual, as a directive from your own company saying, my boss has given me this agenda, right? And then you take that agenda and you work that into your sales program. Now, your boss may already have a prescribed program for you to follow or a directive for you to follow. However, each individual scenario is different. You're going to have to apply that differently to everything you do. So if you're going into a home and good, better, best may work in a particular scenario, it may not work in the next one. The next one may say, look, you know what? I have an elderly person here. The key is to get the air conditioning back on, right?
100%.
And that's where you make that determination. You're not going to have, and I agree with him, there's scumbags, for lack of a better word, that don't care. They feed on the elderly, or they feed on people who are disadvantaged or whatever, and they take advantages. Those people always get found out. There's no question about it. That reputation, especially in today's social media time,
it follows you.
It goes. It goes. So we're not advocating this. We're advocating that upselling is not a negative thing. It's part of business. You don't use the word upselling when you're doing it. You're giving options. And I would look at it, if you're looking at it for a different point of view or a different word, you should be saying option selling. Okay,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, so if you take the upselling equation out of it and say, all right, we're going to go in there and we're going to give our customer an option. Here's what we believe you should do. Here's your other choices, or you don't even have to put what you believe we should do. Any one of these three is fine with us. This is your selection. This is what we recommend. Everything has a price point. There's an efficiency cost factor that matches a dollar factor. So that's how you approach those scenarios. I don't think you're going in at 3 a.m. fixing somebody who's out of heat in the middle of the winter and trying to them an air filter. I don't believe that either.
People are.
Yeah, but I do have a question about that. Not specifically the 3 a.m. because I think you have to show some couth, right? These people are letting you in your house. They don't want to talk to you for 5 minutes, 20 minutes. They want to go back to bed. Right. You want to go back to bed too.
They want you out of their house. That's what they want.
Like in a scenario where, say, you go in to do a service call and it's whatever, it's an AC service, whatever the case may be. How do you guys feel about, the technician being there when they're talking to someone about no AC call? They go in, they're doing the call, they're getting to know the homeowner to a degree because they're walking into the house, changing air filters, etc. How do you feel about them approaching them at the end of the sales call and saying, hey, listen, we're doing a promotion, we're selling water softeners now. Is that something you guys might be interested in? Do you guys feel that's an upsell? And I feel like that's something that everyone should be doing, whether it's water softeners or not.
So I agree with what Joe was saying, and I think we're just repeating ourselves in different verbiage. Is that, for me, I agree with Joe in the sense that you go in and you're there to determine what you're trying to sell the customer. Every customer's different. Every price point's different. Every scenario's different. Different shape house, different color dog, whatever, right? So all that stuff comes into play, and that's your job as Sherlock Holmes to go in and figure out what they need and how you're going to present it, because you might have, a retired engineer from IBM. You might have somebody that doesn't know, their ass from their elbow about anything and just relying on you 100% to feed them information. Neither way, and I want to make sure that we're addressing the younger people that are in this industry, that they don't get driven by somebody who's pushing them in a negative way to go in and be high pressure sales, or to be deceitful, or to lie or cheat, or just to get that $50 spiff, or to get the $20.
I'm certainly not advocating that.
No, I know. I'm not saying you are, and I don't want anybody listening to this thinking that that's what we're doing. That's not the right way to go about this. I believe, and I'm going to go back to try to answer your question, I think, is that what I feel we should be doing is educating the homeowner. Well, I'm assuming that my homeowner doesn't know what they're talking about. That's the position I'm in. So if I go in and they say, well, I don't know, I got air comes out of these white things, and air goes in this big one over here, and it makes some noise, and my pitcher shakes.
That's already more than they know.
Right. So, and they're like, the thermostat says this, and my mom goes over, does it, my husband does this, and, so what, I don't know, right? So tell me what I need. So at that point, that's an open door for me to go in and say, okay, well, start asking more questions. Are you living in the house for a period of time? Are you selling the house for a period of time? So again, back to what Joe's saying, find out the scenario, find out what they need. But at the same time, I feel that my goal in that position is to educate my customer about possible situations, or I should say possible solutions to their situations. All right. So you might go in and say, well, I need a car, right? Well, what kind of car? What do you want to do with it? You just want to go back and forth to work? So, yeah. Do you want 2 wheels? Do you want 4 wheels? How do you want to get around? I need transportation, right? So do you want to carry plywood? Do you want to drive a dump truck? Like, what do you need, right? So as a salesman in automotive, you would start asking questions. Does it need to be blue? Does it, how many tires you want on it? So you got to know what your customer wants and learn it. And you, as the salesman or the person or salesperson, whatever, the professional that's in the room, you need to be open to all kinds of equipment and knowledge on all different scenarios and be able to offer the best possible product. I upsell by definition all the time. I don't like to call it upsell. I like to look at it like I'm educating my customer and ultimately throwing the ball in their court to make the decision. But I want my customer walking out of my scenario feeling confident that they made an educated decision. Not buying a variable speed air handler and going, I don't know, it sounded really cool, but I don't know what the hell it does or how it works. But you didn't educate your customer.
It's such a dangerous situation for any professional that's in there, because a lot of times they trust you enough to let you guide them to what they should be buying. And now all your personal opinions come into play. Like, we could take any two of us in a room, and one of us wants, the highest efficiency, and we're willing to spend the $20,000 to get the 30 SEER condenser and all the other crap that goes with it. And the other guy literally having the same information that I have.
Different points of view, right?
Exactly the same thing. And I mean, every day we walk into somebody that says, I don't care what it is, just give me the cheapest thing you got. So absolutely. Now we have to be careful.
That's a salesperson's biggest argument. That's a salesperson's biggest hurdle, is to sell on price. because
Right.
I don't want to hear all that shit. Just tell me how much.
Right.
Right? That's a big thing. I think educating your customer is good, but you should do it to a point.
Yeah.
Because if you give them too much information,
You're overwhelming. They'll be confused. Yeah.
they only retain a third of what you said.
That's right.
And two, they may use it to the guy coming behind you and buying their shit instead of yours.
That's right.
Well, actually, I get the opposite as that because I've just recently to give
You
an
might be
example.
the last guy in.
Well, I was one of three, and all three guys went in automatically and sold them on. One guy came in automatically with 16 SEER 2-stage variable speed air handler. Another guy came in with 18 SEER 2-stage variable speed air handler, and she asked me to come in, and I asked her, what are you looking for? And she goes, air conditioning. And I'm like, all right, so you got these other bids for this really nice stuff that really, in our area, doesn't justify the leap financially. The payback is forever because we're seasonal up here. So I don't understand why they're even promoting 18 plus here on just a straight up AC when they're going to get 3 months of use out of it. But I asked, is this something that you asked them to bid, or is this just what they bid? She goes, I asked them to give me air conditioning. This is what they bid. They gave me one proposal, and this is what they gave me. And I'm like, so do you even know what a variable speed air handler is? And she goes, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they told me I needed. But so I sat and spent 5 minutes with a piece of paper and a pen, and I actually explained it as best as my artistic abilities would allow me to, and gave her, and I said, look, I don't care if you go variable speed or not, but I just want you to know what you're being pushed to, and explained it to the point where she felt so confident in what she was buying now and understanding it that she says, no one else explained any of this. Like, you spent 40 minutes with me explaining what I was actually getting pushed into buying, and none of it made any sense, but I just felt like, bigger's better. I have to buy bigger is better. I just thought I was going to, really, you're saving me money right there. Like, I'm not saving thousands of dollars now because I don't have to buy this 18 SEER equipment.
Since you're saving all this money, I could show you some other stuff, right?
Exactly. I was just,
Listen,
all I kept hearing was add on a UV light, add on a thermostat, and give her stuff that actually she needs.
All this is an argument of semantics.
Yeah.
This is an argument about how to do this, all things that we can't call upselling. It's the same argument. It's semantics. You go in one approach, I go in another, he goes in another. It's all the same.
This is coming from veterans, guys that have been in the field. We've been in this for a long time. Rob's the youngest of the four of us.
There's
but you put all of our
animals out there, right?
We're 80 years plus experience and almost 100 years of experience sitting in this table right now.
That's true.
You old guys bring up
Rob puts in 15 years.
Small dent in that.
So, but really for the young guys that are out there, this is an important topic, and I want you guys to understand that, when you get a boss that's aggressive and is doing it to just do it.
However, I do want to combat you on one thing. I think that your ability to just be so negative on spiffs and on items that you'd like to push because it may make a house safer or it may make a house more efficient, that your guys, like we said on the last episode, should be going in with checklists and a cookie cutter thing to figure out and evaluate what a house is and give them potential work down the line and say to them, this is something we've noticed. This is certainly for you to consider. These are something we think you should do as soon as possible. These are things that can wait. These are things. That's all upselling, right? That's all food for brain. So by telling your guys, I don't want you doing this, you're taking money out of your pocket.
No. I'm saying with a different agenda. There's bosses that are out there telling their salespeople, go out and sell this and don't come back without that.
I get it.
That's the difference. If you're going out there, I do exactly what you just said. Like, I'll go into Mrs. Johnson and say, look, expansion tank's bad. I'm not going to, that's not an upsell. You need this. It's a safety issue. You got to get it taken care of.
But then do you offer, when you're draining down the system, do you say, hey, we can change our relief valve, the air vent?
Absolutely. We do a water. Yes, but.
Because you don't need those. But
so now the conversation goes, but it's educating the customer, and that's what it is.
You're
it's not
saving the customer money if they do it now.
You're looking out for their best interest.
If that relief valve doesn't leak until the day that boiler cracks,
semantics, boys. Semantics.
Yeah. My agenda was not to go in there and sell a complete water upgrade package on a boiler. My goal was to go there and solve the problem. And I recognized it, and I brought it to their attention, and I'm able to say, like, Rob, just said, your expansion tank's no good. But what I also noticed is that your water feeder's sticking and your relief valve looks a little corroded. I'm not saying it's bad. It might not need to be done right now, but I'm already draining the water and I'm here. And, it looks like your gauge is sticking a little bit. There's 4 items right there that if I have to come back, I'm charging you more labor. So really it's going to cost you more in the end. So,
and that also could be construed as predatory selling.
But I'm giving them the option to do it.
I'm saying
to them,
the fear of God in there. Most of them are going to say, "I got to do it because he scared me."
I think it's important to not scare them. I think
I'm giving them the option and saying, "I'm here. I can do it."
Man,
if you choose
sound
not to,
a lot like me now.
All right. Well, let's come back to something else here. You're
my idol, Joe.
You guys started talking about spiffs and so forth. So, as an owner, let's look at this from an owner's perspective now.
Excuse me, Mr. Before you continue, at least for some of the people who are listening who don't know what a spiff is, elaborate.
Okay. All right.
This is true.
Okay, so
we've brought it up 50 times and we never identified.
I don't even know where the word actually originated from, but it's a spiff is sort of like a mini commission given for something
like
sold.
incentive.
If you sold a new filter, then you get an extra $5 or something.
Right.
You look spiffy.
Spiffy? Okay. Your sales look spiffy. But
I'm jumping on the Google box. So
all right, good. You look it up. So what I'm getting at is from an owner's point of view, you've got guys out there, service techs, that go out there and they're fixing what they're supposed to fix, but they won't look at anything else. They won't do anything. They won't look at the expansion tank that's dripping on the floor or about to explode.
Which you're going to get called for.
You're going to get
your guy was here.
What I'm saying
and
is
he didn't check this.
Those guys won't do anything except exactly what you tell them to do. Go clean the furnace. That's all they're going to do. They're going to go in there with blinders and they're going to close their eyes.
And guys, if you think you're that guy, you need to open your mind a little bit.
So from the owner, all right. So we all know what I'm talking about. But from the owner's point of view, it might be a good incentive to get this guy to open his eyes up and see what's out there, to say, listen, sell something else. We'll give you an extra $5 for every, for an air vent.
Well, there's
or
all
whatever
kinds
else.
of things. Like,
is that a bad thing?
I can tell you of a company who does. They give them a spiff or a sales incentive to say, if you see something wrong and you can get the customer to call in to have a meeting with a salesperson to come to the house, and that salesperson goes and we set the appointment, you get a $50 bill.
It's true.
And then it continues. If they can sell or close that deal, we'll give you 3% of that deal.
There's all levels of this.
Right.
And I think that this can help the guy that doesn't step out of his shell actually start looking around and actually do something more productive for everybody, for the customer and for the company.
If you do one for one, you got to do for all.
The same program for somebody else sets them out to the stratosphere, and they're trying to sell everything, and now you're in the bad zone.
You can't live on service, but you can't live without it, right? So your object is you're doing new construction, you're doing retros, you're doing all of this. When that part of the business slows down, and it will because it's cyclical like every other thing, you got to rely on your service, and you got to rely on being able to do other things other than your big ticket jobs to get you through that hard time.
Okay.
So you need to be able to say to your guys, I want you looking as a habit to say, this is potentially what can go. They may not even have to say nothing to the customer, just write a list.
So for one guy, that makes him step out of his shell and actually do the right thing, and he gets a spiff for that. And the guy standing next to him takes that to the other level, where now I'm going to make an extra $500 a week or $1,000 a week, and I'm going to sell everything to everybody that doesn't need anything.
You cannot change that. You cannot fix that because you're dealing with personalities here, right? You're dealing with everybody has their own way of looking and approaching a situation. Him and I are perfect examples. We agree on nothing. Right? But
we're perfect.
We both have well-meaning intentions and honest. He has a different approach on things based on his experiences in life, and I do things as well as based on my experiences.
But at the end of the day, we get the same results.
Yeah, we all agree on the same principle. It's just semantics, how we go about it. So no, upselling is not bad. Mr. Kevin, it's not bad. It's business importance. You cannot survive without it. You need to upsell. You need to sell more than what you're going in to sell for. Yes, under the right guidelines and what they're going in for, I think you're remiss if you don't present the options when you have the opportunity to be in somebody's home. I think you need to be able to expose them to possibilities, and that's it. Let them make the final call.
But that's educating your customer. That's really what you're there.
Whatever terminology you want to use is fine with me, as long as you get to the finish line.
I agree on all of this. Like I was saying earlier, you can't ever weed out all of the bad people out there that are going to go and take advantage where they can. I mean, it's the same thing with spiff programs. And I have a very odd floundering I do with spiffs, because sometimes I feel like it's the best thing you should do and everybody should be offering to them to their techs, and then other times I feel like it's dangerous.
How hard is it sometimes to give away money?
Oh, this used to drive me nuts.
You can't do it.
We would give away $5 just to bring in a lead on a piece of paper. Like, it didn't even have to qualify as anything. All you had to do was bring and put a piece of paper on my desk, and you got $5. And no one would do it.
That's crazy.
And it's just crazy to me. It's like, it's ridiculous when you take this. I like to do this a lot where, I would take that, and if just you do 4 calls a week, give me one of those 4 calls, a lead on something. You add $5 for every single day.
Yeah, because the value isn't driven into their heads about what it could be. They only see the $5 bill.
Right.
They don't see that 10 of those is $50.
Well, and then we would also give them a percentage of the sale at the end. So it was kind of, it's just.
Yeah,
remember years ago,
a lot of guys think you're doing something wrong, though.
Remember years ago, you and I did a spiff to fill a class.
Right.
And we did it internally on the branches. So I offered a $25 gift card. He offered a $25 gift card, and then we doubled it. I think it was $100.
Yeah, it was
to show for a class?
No, to give to all our counter people in the 3 stores. Say whoever signs up the most people gets the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we included everybody, and it was a feeding frenzy.
Yeah.
They went nuts because they were able to do so.
Yeah.
So it's also how you present these spiffs. And you have to explain, and Kevin's point of view, and I agree with this, it cannot be predatory. It's got to be introduced if it's something that's going to benefit the customer.
But just what Rob was saying about the $5 just for bringing in a name, a lot of those guys in the field think they're doing something wrong. They feel like they're not doing the right thing for the customer, and there's no reason to feel like that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to sit them down and explain it.
Well, I sat down with my guys early on when we tried to roll out this, because we always had a spiff program before I was even involved in the service side, and then when I got in, we were doing a little bit more with the service. I tried to tell a little bit more to my guys about how this was not necessarily doing a bad thing. If you go into someone's house and their boiler is 30 years old, or their AC is 30 years old, or whatever their piece of equipment is, you're not really doing them a service by not actually offering to have me come out as the salesperson and take a look at it and offer them pricing on a new unit. Because at some point, even if the answer is no today, at some point the 30-year-old piece of equipment is going to be at a spot where we can't solve it. And the worst calls that I would get were the ones that, you guys mentioned this on a couple podcasts. Your guy was just here. How come nobody told me?
That really happens.
And then they get angry and they start losing your judgment.
And then they thought that we were doing something wrong. So it's just, meanwhile,
the incompetence level comes in.
Meanwhile, every time that a tech drove me to a lead, and even if it wasn't a yes on the site, God forbid something happened within the next week or so, that person called me, they couldn't sign the contract fast enough. Yeah. Because they'd already been told. Or better yet, we've been telling them for the past 3 years at their annual service, hey, listen, this is an old system, just wanted to let you know, you might want to start thinking about throwing a little bit of money aside. I can have a guy come out and do a free estimate for you. There's nothing wrong with that.
If they don't do that, then you get the call in the middle of January and your heat's out on New Year's Eve or something.
You're documenting that conversation every time.
Yeah, it is out. We told you it would be.
Yeah.
Which, and again, but
Christmas Eve.
Even that in itself, just offering to have a sales guy come out is an upsell. It's offering something more to
That's really true. Selling is not always a product.
Of course.
It's just the next appointment.
Again, all you're doing is presenting an option.
Yeah.
That's all it is. This is all semantics about how to get to the same finish line.
Yeah, that's why I think you need, a better word. I completely agree, though, because I hate upselling as a word.
Upselling as a word sounds predatory.
I'm a salesperson, and I hate that word for some reason.
It just sounds predatory. It sounds aggressive.
It doesn't bother me whatsoever because I don't look at it the way you guys do.
It makes my skin crawl for some reason. I don't know why.
It's because you like him.
I think we need an intervention on Joe.
Yeah. All right. So
what the hell's his name?
This is
the Pepperoni Princess or something?
Paulie the Prince of Prosciutto.
Paulie the Prince of Prosciutto.
You with the whistle come up with that. Right. Paulie the Prince of Prosciutto.
Number 3. Unbelievable.
All right, well,
Rob, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was exciting. This was really fun.
It's infectious, isn't it?
You're now considered the
You're the virgin.
You're the virgin jerk.
I'm a virgin jerk. I was telling Kevin before this, I'm like, there's a lot of responsibility here because if I suck, I feel like I ruined it for future guests.
Yeah, that's right.
But if I crush
don't worry,
it,
that's what John's here for. He just wipes you right out.
Just delete my whole part. I'm going to hear this back and there's going to be nothing for me,
Yes,
just
exactly.
like static or like the Charlie Brown parents.
Right. So John, Rob also is a part of Delta T.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Right.
What's
So
good.
John, Rob has been a big part in helping us getting the website
T
up
Creative.
and going, and Delta T Creative.
Yeah, so if you go to deltatcreative.com, we set up the website for the HVAC Jerks, and we are also basically trying to set up more of like a subscription model for websites for contractors. The idea is you pay a monthly fee as opposed to paying all of the upfront costs of building a website, because building a website can be very expensive depending on how many features and options you want on it. So we kind of came up with this concept of doing it as a monthly breakdown for it, so that way...
Is it industry specific, or can you apply to anything?
Right now we're doing it mostly focused on HVAC because that's my background, but we'd certainly, like, if there's an electrician listening to the podcast, and it's similar. It's just the benefit that we have is me having an HVAC background. I can kind of translate that to the web folks who speak, .com, SEO.
Who speaks
all that.
ones and zeros.
Yeah, that's basically it. So, we've talked about that quite a few times where their language doesn't necessarily translate down to us guys in the trade.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that go-between. But certainly if there's another contractor out there who's interested.
How do they get in touch with you? Or
Just through the website, deltat.com, or they can email me at Rob
Creative?
at deltatcreative.com. Yeah.
So, okay.
Delta
It would
T
be
Creative.com.
beneficial to have the. Let's just.
Is there an
one more
Instagram
clear,
or anything?
I got to say that our website was probably a little bit more difficult for you guys, and it's still developing because this is a completely different thing, and we keep changing our ideas and all that stuff.
That happens a lot, actually. Yeah. So it's people change their minds. It's a lot of feedback back and forth.
The one thing I could say, they were very flexible in any changes we
absolutely.
wanted,
Yeah.
so it was really good,
That was
easy
good,
to work
yeah.
with.
But and that's the nice thing about paying monthly as well is as you go, we can update changes for you as often as you want. That's the nice thing about doing a monthly thing. Whereas some people, if they build your website, the cost is just your website's just up.
Yeah,
and
here's
see you
how
later.
easy it was. We opened up the HVAC Jerks website. I went out and I already bought something on our website. So what did you buy? I bought an apron.
With the HVAC Jerks,
Absolutely.
That's great.
Would Delta T Creative be able to do a cookbook website for Joe?
Yeah,
if they're
I'm sure we
anonymous
could
Joe?
make that happen. I think that would be hilarious. Yeah.
I started shooting Rich some things I cook on Friday. So maybe we'll call a Friday night menu or something.
Something like
That's
that.
great.
Yeah, all right.
Quick
What did you
stuff.
cook this week?
This week was bad. It was hospital week, so we didn't do much.
Jello.
All right, so, all right. Thanks for joining us this week again. We appreciate all your time, and if you could catch us on Instagram, Facebook, and send us an email. Tell us what you
YouTube.
want to
Don't
talk
forget the
about.
YouTube. Check out our new videos.
Yes,
We're going to be
on
live.
all over YouTube now, so come see us there. Send us some ideas, and be sure to join us again next week when Anonymous Joe takes us on a virtual tour of his ant farm and shows us how he decorates it for Christmas.
Joe, you're going to hate this, but I love that part of the podcast.
All right, take care.
Oh my God.
You guys are jerks.
Follow the HVAC Jerks on Facebook and Instagram.